this is how the landing page of creating a new property looks like. And let me start with the farthest top, the farthest section at the top here. So we have details, and all this part is where we have the details. I'm going to be coming back here. Then we have deposits. I also mentioned that as we go along. We have commissions, and this is where you set all the commissions that are applicable. And by default, we have set these as the commissions in the system. So every time you are creating a new property, these are fetched by default and populated here, and you can change them. Allow me to close this so that you can stop those pop-ups. So these commissions are fetched, they are brought into the new property you are creating, and you can remove or add them depending on how you want to manage your property. Then we have payments. Again, payments are going to be where we are going to be handling our payments. So we can see here we have different types of payment account, and here we have common for all houses, and we also have different for each house. So what this means is, if we do common for all houses, the account number we are going to put here is where the money is going to go when it is paid by the tenants or the tenants within that property. But sometimes as a landlord, you may find that, or even as a landlady or an agent, you may have a situation where you want to collect, let's say, the first floor money to account A, second floor and third floor to the second account, fourth floor and fifth floor and so on to another account, and something like that. So in that case, we did a flexibility where we can have accounts for into all the houses that you're going to be having. And once you select this section here, I'm going to show you where that applies. What other I can mention, because I'm not touching the creation of the house today. You notice that when I say this is different for each house, we do not have a section to enter the bank account here, because that section shows up in the houses that belong to this property. So you are going to be setting up the bank account inside the house. When we have that it is common for all houses, pardon my background. So when we say that payments are going to be common for all houses, we have this bank account here, and that is where the bank account is going to be entered for that property, the entire property. Then here we have rent paid to. We have either agent account or lesser account. When it is agent account, what happens is that this money is reflected as income for the agency that is managing. But when it is lesser account, then for the purposes of accounting, because our system also contains an accounting system, what happens is that the money paid by the tenants is not reflected as income for the agency, but rather is booked as income into the respective lesser account. That having been said, I have mentioned, I've discussed commissions and payments. I'll come to deposits, but I want us to look at details, because this is where there is most of the things that we need to do. So the first thing that you need to do here is to enter the landlord name. So the landlord name can be something like Karani Geoffrey. And what happened? Karani what? Yeah, this is Jacqueline Karani. Basically, you can create your own landlord, or you can select an existing landlord. And then here we have an agent. So you need to select the name of the agent again. For example, I can create Upeosoft as an agent. Doesn't matter. Maybe Upeosoft Limited. Then I can just create this one. Let me do Upeosoft Limited, mobile number. Maybe I enter my number there, and the email address is probably my email address. Alright. And then I save. The ID number is not mandatory, but if you have the ID number, you can also enter it there. Then I save. That's of course not my ID number. Then I save it. So this agent is going to be added there. The third thing is the property name. What is the property name, or rather the name of the property that you are creating here? So I'm going to do something like Upeosoft Heights. Remember, this is just a dummy apartment. That's why I'm calling it these names. We can say here that the location is in Kileleshwa. So you are going to put in the location of your property. And then here you can have the caretaker mobile number. I can say maybe this is something like 78935 and 90. So this is the number of the caretaker that is going to be taking care of the property. If your property does not have a caretaker, you can use your number as the number that is here. It is important because there are some communications that the system is going to be doing to this mobile number here. And then now here we start where we start building the engine. You see, when we have water charges, the system needs to know how do you handle your water charges. Is it not charged? Is it read from meter? Is it fixed amount, or is it proportionate billing? Now, read from meter is where you will probably have to go around the properties that you have, reading from meter for the property and also into the individual houses. So what this means is that every tenant is going to be paying the amount that they have spent. And I think it would have been prudent to extract this so that you only see this page. So what happens is that when I click on read from meter, you notice that this section for water here was added. Let me show you. You see this one? If I get it back to not charged, you see we move from details to deposits. But when I say read from meter, water shows up here. And into water, we have different sources of water. Again, because you could find that in a specific property, you have multiple sources of water and meters as well. I have dealt with agents which have more than one meters for every house, and therefore you can add those here as meter A, meter B. And when you are going to be billing, you can have even different rates for each meter, depending of course on the cost that you are getting the water at, because you could be getting water that you are supplying through meter A at maybe 100 Kenya shillings per unit, and then the water that you are supplying through meter B, you could be getting at 120 Kenya shillings per unit. So you see that one, even the charge you are passing to the tenants could be slightly different, unless if you want to pay for them so that they have a unified rate. But I also think it is appropriate for them to know that for meter A you spend this amount, and for meter B you spent this amount. So this is where you can add all those meters that you have within your property. So that is for the case where we have read from meter. We also have fixed amount, and you notice that, by the way, when you have read from meter, here you add the meter name. For example, we can say this is meter A, and then here you had an amount like the ones we said 100, and then you could have meter B, and for meter B we can do 120, 130. So for each and every meter here, and you must not name them as meter A, meter B, you could call them anything, and then this is where you're going to put the respective unit costs for that meter. The second thing is fixed amount, and when it's fixed amount, what happens is that we don't have those meters there because we are not reading from meter really, we are fixing amount. So what this means is that every tenant that you have, for example, is going to pay 1,000 shillings for water every month, and that is why you see when you selected fixed amount, fixed water amount input showed up here, so you can do like 1,000 there, and this is the amount that is going to be sent into the invoice when the system is going to be generating the invoice at the end of the month. The other thing is proportionate billing. Proportionate billing is same as kind of read from meter, but what happens here is that you want to charge the tenants depending on the amount of water that has been consumed overall within the property. So for example, if you have 10 houses and the amount of units that have been spent is, let's say, 1,000 units in a month, then what you're going to do is you're going to read the meters of the tenants. Say tenant A has spent 10 units, tenant B this amount of units, then you take the amount of units spent, that is 1,000, divided by the sum of the units spent by the tenants, and then that way you get the unit cost. When you get the unit cost from there, or rather the units that have been spent from there, the next thing that you're going to do is to multiply that by the number of units again each tenant has spent, and then multiply that by the unit cost, and therefore that way you will have paid for all the billing, all the water that has been spent within the property. So that ensures that the agents or the landlord or landladies, less as in one word, don't have to pay extra money to the, maybe for example, the city council or the bodies that are regulating the waters. That is what we had here for proportionate billing. So that is what we have for water charges. Let's go to late fee. So late fee is basically the amount that you charge the tenants when they do not pay rent in time. So for example, if your rent to be paid by the, say, the 10th of every month, then every tenant who does not pay by 10th and has not given any notice is going to be charged late fee if you set this to charge late fee. But you can see the first option we have here is not charged. So what this means is even if you pay on 20th, then there is not going to be any late fee. But if you say it is charged, then the system expects you to give a number of things. Number one is by when do you expect these people to pay rent? And you can say, for example, I want them to pay by 10th. And then the system also expects you to tell it, how are you charging the late fee? Is it a percentage of rent? If you say it's a percentage of rent, then here you have to specify what percentage of rent. Is it 5%? Is it 3%? Is it 10%? Or what percentage of rent do you want to charge every tenant that does not pay by date 10th? The other option we have here is to do a fixed amount. And fixed amount here, you have just need to say, I want to charge 1,000 or maybe 200 or whatever amount, 500 to every tenant that does not pay rent by date 10th, right? And then the other thing is VAT charges. VAT charges come in very handy when you are doing business premises. For example, if you are letting out houses that are doing business, then you need to charge for VAT. VAT is not very applicable for residential houses. That is for people who are renting to live there. But for the people who are renting to do businesses with those properties, then you need to charge VAT. So again, if this is a residential property and you are not charging a VAT, you're going to do not charged. But if you are charging, then you need to say how you are charging it. And then here you need to just enter the VAT amount that you are going to charge the tenants. Here we have another field that says send message on invoice submit. What this means is that, remember, at the end of the month, once the billing has been done, the system automatically generates the invoices. So again, you do not need to go generating the invoices manually. The system will automatically handle that. So what the system is asking you is, do you want me to automatically send messages to tenants? Basically, this message is something like, dear Karani, your rent for this month is this amount, and the total due will contain the amount of this month plus the balance that I didn't pay in the previous month. And so the total due is XYZ, and you can also customize that message to read however you want it to read. So this one again is a yes and no, and you can see it's a required field, so you cannot leave it blank. And see here is a required field. So if you say yes, then when the invoices are generated and submitted, the system will automatically send that invoice to the tenants. If you say no, the messages are not going to automatically send, and for some reason, if you want that to happen, then that is what the system is going to do. The next thing we have here is lease fee. What is the amount of lease fee that you are charging? That is for only the properties. You can see that's not a required field. That is because there are properties where you charge lease, and there are properties where you do not charge lease fees. Then here we have agent commission. Agent commission is for the properties which are being managed by agents. So if you are an agent, this is for you. How much is the agent commission? If this property is not being managed by an agent, then agent commission will be not charged. But if it is being managed by an agent, then you have other options. It can either be percentage of rent. If you see it's a percentage of rent, what this will mean is, you can see here this field popped up that says percentage of agent commission. You can say 2% or 3% or 5%. So if it's, for example, 5%, what that is going to mean is, if somebody pays 100 shillings as rent, a tenant, then 5 shillings is going to go into agent commission. And there is a way we have handled that so that you can get automatically the reports. Once tenants have paid rent, you can go and directly get the reports, knowing how much money is supposed to go to the landlord or landlady and how much is your commission as an agent. Also, this is reflected directly as an income for the agent that is using Kejeka. So that is for percentage of rent. Here we also have another field for fixed amount. What fixed amount means is if even if you have one property where you are charging 5,000 Kenya shillings as rent and another one you are charging 100,000 Kenya shillings as rent, if both of them are using fixed amount of 1,000, what that will mean is the for both properties 1,000 is what the system is going to allocate as the agent commission. Then we have a final option here, which is fixed amount per unit occupied. Fixed amount, you know, here we have fixed amount. So fixed amount could, even if this apartment does not have even a single tenant, then the agent, not the agent, or rather yes, the agent will be expecting the landlord or landlady to pay them 1,000 shillings. But when we say this is fixed amount per unit occupied, then what this is going to do is how much is going to be paid for every unit that is occupied. Yeah, and you can see this is fixed amount per unit occupied. Ideally, because when we say percentage of rent means it is only when rent is paid that this percentage kicks in. So this automatically takes care of those units that are occupied. But for the fixed amount, this one will be payable whether the unit is occupied or not. And then fixed amount per unit occupied is only for those units that are occupied. So you could say it's maybe 50 shillings for every house or every unit, maybe 100 shillings for every unit that is occupied here. All right, that is agent commission. The next thing that we have is garbage charge. How do you treat garbage charges? So you can either not charge garbage, and therefore tenants are not going to pay anything there, or you can do a fixed amount. When you do fixed amount, the system expects you to enter here what is the fixed amount that you are charging each tenant. If you do percentage, then here you need to say what percentage of rent is supposed to be charged for every tenant. And then if it's different for each house, when you select this option here, then garbage charge is going to be different for each house, and therefore you're going to be setting this up when you are setting up the house. I'm going to be doing a different video for how you configure houses, and I'm going to factor in all these changes and all these settings to show you how this is done. Now, when does different for each house apply? Sometimes you may have a property, this property here called Upeosoft Heights, that is in Kejeka, and this property has 1-bedroom houses, it has 2-bedroom houses, and probably it has 3-bedroom houses. You may want to charge 1-bedroom houses different from what you are charging 3-bedroom houses. That is why we have this option here. So when you do this, then the system gives you the flexibility to split that up to charge different houses as you wish. That's it. The other thing here is service charge. The service charge is the same as the garbage charge, so I don't have to spend a lot of time explaining this one. If it's fixed amount, it's fixed amount for all the houses. If it's a percentage, it's the same percentage for all the houses. If it's different for each house, then you need to specify in the house level what is the service charge for each and every house. Then we have security charges. Again, this one you can either decide not to charge your tenants, or you can decide to charge them. If it's not charged, of course tenants are not going to pay anything there. But if it is fixed amount, then you need to enter here what is the fixed amount that these tenants are going to pay on a monthly basis as the security charges. Then here we have electricity token. Let me close this one. We have electricity charges. Electricity charges can either be token or charged on house meter. If it is token, what that means is that there is nothing you're going to bill the tenant at the end of the month, because ideally they are topping up their own electricity. So if a tenant has not topped up, it's none of your business. It is the electricity that is going to go off. But if you see it is charged on house meter here, then you need to read the house meters, and it's going to be treated as water in this case. So for example, if I have spent 100 units of electricity in a specific month, and you are charging me, let's say how much, maybe 10 shillings per unit, then I will need to pay 1,000. It is going to appear in the invoice at the end of the month. That 1,000 is going to appear in the invoice, and therefore it's going to be payable as part of the bill that I'm supposed to pay at the end of that month. Then here we have allow automatic billing. Automatic billing, here again we made it mandatory, so it's either a no or yes, and the default is no. Automatic billing is whereby at a specific date of the month, on a specific date of the month, what the system does is that it automatically generates the invoices. So this one is normally used where you are not billing for water. So water is maybe a specific amount, a fixed amount. But if you need to go to read those meters and make sure that every tenant has captured, you have captured rather, how much water or electricity every tenant has consumed, then it is important that you set this one to yes, only when you are sure that by that date, when you have told the system to automatically generate the invoices, you will have captured those readings, so that the system can take those readings, then go ahead and compute the amounts, generate the invoices with those amounts factored in. If you are not sure that you will read the meters, or rather you will enter all the necessary data before the date of the automatic billing, then I would advise you leave this as no, and therefore what the system is going to do is it is going to wait for you to do manual generation of those bills. Then here we have invoice due date. This is what is going to be put in the invoices by default. So when every time you are generating an invoice, what happens is that this invoice due date is what the system is going to use. We added this one here because sometimes we noticed that you may have special cases where you didn't manage to generate your invoices in time, and therefore you need to give tenants flexibility. So for example, if you are generating your invoices on date 7th, you don't expect me to pay by 5th. It is practically impossible. Even 10th may be soon. So what you need to do is to allow the tenants a little bit of time, maybe generate by 7th, and then allow them to pay by, let's say, 12th or 15th. So what you are going to do here is that you're going to just come here and set this as the 15th of the next month. And that is what is going to be added into each and every invoice generated for this property. The last thing in this screen is automatically send SMS, rent SMS reminders. What this means, if you say yes, you see we have another input here that says send SMS reminders on. So you can send on 1st, 2nd, all the way to 10th. What this means is you want tenants to receive an SMS telling them that, dear Karani, please remember to settle your outstanding bill of 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever amount of rent. So if you say yes there, you need to specify on what date do you want the system to send these reminders automatically to tenants. And of course, those are going to be dynamic messages. So if my balance is 10,000, I'll get an SMS telling me I have 10,000 balance. If another tenant has a balance of 1,000, they are going to get an SMS telling them that their balance is 1,000. Then the last thing that I want to do here, and then I will close this video, is the deposits. In the deposits, what we have is this, and what we are going to do here is what deposits are you taking for this house. So the first thing, of course, is going to be house security deposit. This one is very important. And then maybe you also do electricity deposit, and then you also do something like water deposit. So notice that these ones don't have amounts here. So when you add these three here, when you go to the house, again I'll be showing you that when you are creating the house, then the house is going to be every house inside this property is going to be expecting those three deposits to be done on it. And therefore this also allows you, because you see it is in the house level, the house security deposit, for example, in the example I give you in the 3-bedroom and 1-bedroom houses, cannot be the same. So if rent for 3-bedroom houses is 100,000, then probably 1-bedroom house is maybe 50,000, and therefore the deposit is an equivalent amount. If you are taking 1 month deposit, the 3-bedroom is going to be 100,000 deposit, the 1-bedroom is going to be 50,000 deposit. That is why we don't have amounts here, but those amounts are going to be set up in the house. But what we have in the property level is the deposits that are needed for every house, and then at the house level, because they are specific to every house, then you need to enter those amounts there. I will stop this video here. If you're interested, of course, as usual, I will leave my contact information in the comments, not comments, but in the description section of this video on YouTube. So you can go there, grab my contacts, and let's engage, let's talk, and let's see how we can improve business together. If you have any other questions or you need an extensive demo, we are more than available and more than willing to do that. Please just drop me a message, just show your interest, and we will do the demo either online or at your premises. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope to see you in the next video when I'll be showing you how to create the houses inside this property of ours. Bye bye.